Tippett had a show for many, many years on NPR called On Becoming, and this book called Becoming Wise, I missed the wise part of the bulletin, sorry about that, is sort of a compilation of what she learned in her years and years and years of interviewing folks. It's really a wonderful book, and I would recommend it. This chapter is on hope, reimagined. In a century of staggering open questions, hope becomes a calling for those of us who can hold it for the sake of the world. Hope is distinct, in my mind, from optimism or idealism. It has nothing to do with wishing. It references reality at every turn and reveres truth. It lives open-eyed and wholehearted with the darkness that is woven ineluctably into the light of life and sometimes seems to overcome it. Hope, like every virtue, is a choice that becomes a practice, that becomes spiritual muscle memory. It's a renewable resource for moving through life as it is, not as we wish it to be.
The scripture reading this morning is from Jeremiah chapter 33, verses 14 through 16. The days are surely coming, says Yahweh, when I will bestow on Israel and Judah all the blessings I promised them. In those days and at that time, I will raise up a righteous branch from the line of David, who will bring justice and integrity to the land. In those days, Judah will be safe and Jerusalem will be secure. We will call the land, Yahweh is our justice.
Thank you, Robin. All right, Mikey, I gotta make you move because I can't see you behind the pillar, and that drives me nuts if it doesn't drive you nuts.
I'll sit at this table.
Okay. Thank you. I like to see your smiling face, which I can't really see because there's a mask on. So, would you pray with me? Divine Essence, open our hearts and our minds to your Spirit that is in us and through us and around us and calls us to radical hope in the midst of even these craziest, darkest times. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of each of our hearts be filled with your light and your grace and your wisdom. Amen. I want to start with, I don't know if this is a poem or if it's just a quote from Mark Nepo. He says, "To journey without being changed is to be a nomad." Now let these things sink in. To journey without being changed is to be a nomad. To change without journeying is to be a chameleon. But to journey and to be transformed by the journey is to be a pilgrim. So we find ourselves at the beginning of this Advent journey. And somehow every year it feels like this sneaks up on me. Do you ever feel that way? Like, poof, all of a sudden Advent is here and we're counting down till Christmas. And we don't feel ready for it necessarily. Even though the Christmas trees and the decorations have all been in the stores for a good month now. Even when I went to the stores to see them, I still didn't feel ready by the time we got to the first Sunday in Advent. And I think maybe it's even harder this year because a lot of us aren't even going out to the stores. There used to be at least one radio station that played all Christmas songs starting in November, and it drove me nuts. But at least it started getting me in the mood a little bit. So here we are. Ready or not, we're starting our countdown to Christmas. The choice we have to make is, will we engage the journey? Will we be the pilgrims who are willing to open our hearts and open our minds and actually engage in this walk and learn and grow from it? Or, will we kind of wander the path, not opening our hearts and not opening our minds, and ending up being the nomad who moves about meaninglessly, purposelessly? Or maybe even worse is to be the chameleon who's changing colors. Maybe we're putting up our Christmas lights and our decorations, but aren't being moved at all inside. The choice, because it is a choice, really is ours to make. I think almost every Advent starts with talking about hope, because hope is so foundational to so much, and certainly to all of the themes of Advent, joy and peace and love and waiting and preparation and anticipation and patience. Hope is the springboard for all of it. But it sure feels like our country, our society, maybe even our world is a little short on hope these days. So I want to take your hope temperature today, okay? I want to measure your hope from between 0 to 10. So like 0 is, yeah, I ain't got nothing. And 10 is, oh, I'm good, I'm hopeful. And we're going to do a raise of hands. So like, if you got nothing, don't even move your hands, right? And you all, I expect everybody online to be doing this too. So, and if you, 10 is all the way up in the air, and a 5 is about here, where you are on the hope temperature scale, all right? You got it in your heads? All right, everybody go. Raise a hand or not. Come on, Maggie. Or is your hand in your lap? Is that where we are? Okay. All right. Well, good. Most of you are at least halfway. Put your hands down. Thank you. I'm encouraged. Maybe you are more hopeful than general society is, which would be a good thing. I was talking to a friend this week who sees a steady stream of different clients who come in to see her every week, and she came home one night this week and she was just fit to be tied. She had enough of people. She didn't want to see anybody ever again. She was ready to retire and be done with the whole 9 yards of it, just because people cannot stop talking about COVID and the election. She's even got a sign up that says this is a COVID and election-free zone. And she points it out, and nobody cares. They keep talking about COVID and the election. And so she tries to distract them and says, oh, well, so what are you doing with your time these days? Nothing, which leads back to the COVID thing again. She's like, really? We've been doing this for how many months now, and you can't find something else to do? And so she tries again. So what are your plans for Thanksgiving? We're back to COVID again. She said, apparently there are no safe questions either to ask anybody. And I feel for her. To do that for 8-10 hours a day sucks the life out of you. Imagine what it would do for just that one person to have someone come in and be hopeful and positive and uplifting. It can make a huge difference just to one person. And the choice is ours to make. And the question is, what choice will we make? So let's talk a little about Jeremiah. Jeremiah was not a bullfrog, contrary to popular belief. Jeremiah was a prophet, Old Testament prophet, like 600 years before Jesus. And life was not good back then. Yeah, he was an Israelite. He was part of the kingdom of Judah, and that kingdom had been kicked back and forth between rulers over and over and over again. And in Jeremiah's lifetime, he would see the fall of Jerusalem, the Babylonian exile, and the end of the kingdom of Judah as they knew it back then. He was speaking to a people who were oppressed, who were hopeless and helpless under the thumb of rulers and empires who made decisions based on political expediency and power. And while Jeremiah was typically known as being really not a very nice guy, kind of being a stern, no-nonsense, rigid sort of prophet, in this passage, which is known within the book of Jeremiah as the book of consolation, he's actually comforting and hopeful. And what's important to recognize is that it's a radical hope that he's professing, because he has backed up his words with a crazy, ridiculously irresponsible action given the hopeless times. Because in a couple paragraphs before this part, God has come to Jeremiah and said, yeah, everything's going to be wiped out, the Babylonians are going to take over, you're going to be sent into exile, a lot of people are going to die, but I want you to buy a field. This is kind of like going, all right, everybody's going to be condemned to stay at home, nobody's going to be able to eat out, nobody's going to be able to go to the bars, but I want you to buy a restaurant. Okay? It was that kind of craziness. And Jeremiah went, what, are you kidding me? And God said, nothing is impossible with God. So Jeremiah bought a field. In this passage that we're at, he's talking to the people and he's saying, listen, I know things look pretty bad, but I've got it on a good order that someday Yahweh will raise up a righteous branch. Now this whole righteous branch part is why we read this during Advent, because people have read into this the prophecy of Jesus. But if you read the ensuing chapters in Jeremiah, you realize the righteous branch wasn't just one person. It was like the branch of the Israelites. It was the community. And I know righteous throws us off. It's one of those really high, stuffy, rigid religious words that none of us really like. But at the end of the day, it just means to make good choices. It means to make correct choices. Choices that are based in love and integrity and honor and justice and fairness and compassion. It's to be that kind of a person. And so Jeremiah says, look, things are going to be okay. I've got it on good order, and you've got to believe me, because look, I bought a field. Even I believe what I'm saying. So he's calling them to have this radical hope in the midst of hopelessness and despair. And so we too are called to have a radical hope in the midst of this really difficult time. A radical hope that perhaps even with all of this difference, or because all of this difference, we'll have a new perspective that will help us to grow and be transformed by this journey. Jeremiah is saying, hang in there with me, it gets better. And that's the voice that we're called to be. Is the it gets better voice, which I'm coming back to in a second. But we are also called, and I know all of you have an ounce of rebel in you, so you can join me in, all right, some of us have more than an ounce. I am calling you not only to have radical hope, but to be positive deviants. Okay? Krista Tippett's words, and I love them. To be positive deviants. Be a deviant in our society today. Deviate from the norm of apparently cynicism and negativity and complaining that appears to be going on. Be a positive deviant that brings radical hope wherever you go. Because it gets better. Reminds me of the It Gets Better project. Do you all know what the It Gets Better project is? The It Gets Better project has been out for like 10 years. And it was started to be hope and encouragement and support for LGBTQ youth who were struggling with their identities and their feelings, and families who were unsupportive, and bullying at school, and did we come out, do we not, all of that stuff. In the past 10 years, 70,000 people have posted videos on their website. You can go to the It Gets Better website. And it was hard for me to pick videos to watch, but it's people who uploaded videos talking about how life was rough, but to hang in there because it gets better. What a beautiful outpouring of support and hope. And so that's sort of what we're called to be in the world right now. You've all been through something awful in your lives. Or maybe you're going through something awful right now. But we can all look back and see something that we've been through that we didn't think it was going to get better at the time. And it did, right? Nodding is good. If you haven't noticed that it's gotten better, then I'm here to be your radical hope for the day. Because it does, even if it feels like you are going through the darkest darkness ever, we hang in because the light comes back. And if nothing else, we've got, like 23 days before the light starts really coming back into our world and things stop being so dark. But it gets better. And this will one day get better. We can't get stuck in the negativity and the hopelessness. Do you know what it looks like when you get stuck in that hopelessness? So how many of you have ever played on the monkey bars? You all played on the monkey bars? Okay. You know the monkey bars, they're like the ladder you go across, right? So what happens if you don't trust the swing? Right? Because this is how it goes. So you have to, as you're reaching for the one bar, you have to let go of the other bar so the momentum carries you through to the next one. Have you helped a kid do the monkey bars and you're hanging on to them and you're like, no, you've got to swing and catch the bar, and they're like hanging there doing this, and you can hardly get the momentum to get to the next bar, right? This is what happens when we give up hope. We get stuck doing this. And it's hard to get that momentum to swing to the next bar. Am I making any sense at all, or am I just being silly? It makes perfect sense to me. Hope is, and trust is the momentum that carries us through life. And if we get stuck in the worry and the fear, we hang there uncomfortable, and it's hard to get moving again. Be a positive deviant. Radical trust. Krista Tippett says that hope needs to become a practice. And then if we practice it long enough, it becomes spiritual muscle memory. I love how that sounds. Spiritual muscle memory. You know, I've got a few pieces Sue on the piano that I memorized when I was a kid. And I can play them if I don't think about them, because it's like that spiritual muscle memory. And it's not just chopsticks. Hope becomes that spiritual muscle memory when we practice it long enough. It becomes our go-to. We become the people who don't give up, the person who's a glass half full. We become the positive force that walks into somebody's office and lifts them up because we're not stuck in negativity. Because it gets better. And we know that, and we believe that. And we trust that the Spirit is working in the midst of all of it to help it get better. We're the ones who believe, not naively, that things are going to get better, because we don't expect it to happen in the blink of an eye. But we're the ones that hope despite the pandemic, despite the racial inequity, despite the violence in our country, we hope anyway. Because we see all of the good that's still out there. We see the people who are helping one another. We see the bridges that are being built. You know, I was walking the dog the other morning. Actually, it was Thanksgiving morning. Or it was the day after Thanksgiving. And I'm walking down the street, and people are bringing their garbage cans out because, of course, the garbage truck is coming a day late. And everybody's like, oh shoot, I missed the garbage man. So they're all rushing to the street with their garbage cans. And I'm saying hi to people as I go by, and I pass one house, and a black gentleman is pulling his garbage can out, and next door the Indian neighbor is pulling his garbage can out, and they're like, hey, how's it going? Did you have a good Thanksgiving? And they're chatting to each other, and they're saying hi to me, and I'm like, this is hope. Right here. All of these beautiful colors in one place, talking about Thanksgiving. Jeremiah bought a field. What can you do that maybe flies in the face of reason or not? That brings hope, that shows hope, that acts on hope. What can you do this week, today, tomorrow, every day? Anybody?
Put up our Christmas decorations, even if no one
Yep.
else is going to see them.
Absolutely. Put up your Christmas decorations, even if no one's going to see them. Because Christmas still comes. Be that hope. Still carry on your traditions the best way you can. What else? Every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. The chimes are going off here, folks, if you can't hear that.
Lift someone up who's down.
Lift someone up who's down. I know smiling doesn't get us anywhere, but you know, people smile with their eyes. So smile behind your mask. I can tell when somebody's smiling at me. Even that can be a radical gesture these days. Say hello behind your mask. Oh my gosh. Why did we stop talking, Clarice?
Talk about the positive aspects of this pandemic instead of complaining about what you can't have.
Yes. To talk about the positive aspects of life right now instead of complaining about what we can't have. Hope is about what we do have, not about what we don't have. What we can do instead of what we can't do. So stop focusing on what we can't do and what we don't have and start looking for things that we can do and we do have. That's it. I'm going to have to turn to my list because you're falling behind. We got some of them. Make space for awe and wonder. Don't forget to smile at the sunshine. And when that first good snow happens, do not complain. Go, oh, isn't it pretty? Make a snow angel. See, do something crazy and make a snow angel. Surprise someone with something. I don't care if you clean out something from your closet and it becomes now you know how Native Americans do a giveaway? And they like take their own stuff and they just give it to people? Maybe we should do that. You can't go shopping, do a giveaway. Drop things at people's doors. Just because you can. Find ways to be positive and be hope. Until it becomes a practice, until it becomes spiritual muscle memory. That's our choice today. Amen.